Breakfast is more than just cornflakes and bacon and eggs. I'm Chef Jonathan Luck, and I'm here to tell you, eat your breakfast. Now, if the food itself doesn't convince you, I'll give you the lecture first. Nutritionists will tell you that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. The regimen is, they say, you're supposed to eat like a king at breakfast, a duke at lunch, and a pauper at dinner time. And they say that that is the best method for weight control. The reason is, when you come out of your sleep, you have been fasting. Hence, break fast with your breakfast. Your brain is starved for glucose and it wants to stay in bed. It's tired. It doesn't want to go anywhere. If you need to get up and do things, you need to give it some fuel. But it doesn't have to be necessarily what you've grown up thinking of breakfast as being. Look at what we have in front of us. We have quesadillas, edamame, fresh soybeans, cheese sticks, latkes, pizzas, muffins, meatloaf. Leftover meatloaf is beautiful for breakfast. Potatoes, beans, oatmeal, spanakopita, just like the shores of the Aegean Sea. Instant quiches, one-bite quiches, granola, smoothies, breakfast bars, fresh fruit, juice. All of these are possibilities for breakfast. All of them will get you off to a good start to your day. So let's explore it together. One of the easiest breakfasts in the world to make is a simple scrambled egg. And to start, of course, you need to scramble your eggs. Now, the easy way to do it is to buy them scrambled for you. These are a liquid egg. You can buy liquid eggs or you can buy light liquid eggs, which means that you're basically getting egg whites with the egg yolk taken out. Much less cholesterol, of course, in the eggs without the yolks. But if you're starting with the original package, just as nature intended, you crack it into a bowl. Now, a couple ways to crack. Okay, there's the one that you've seen a million times before, where you crack it, stick both thumbs into the part you've cracked, and open it up like that. Now, one thing, don't crack it against a sharp edge like that, because that tends to push the broken shell inside, and you might get it in your egg mixture. And if you don't want to have to strain it, just do it on a flat surface like this. Now, the other way of doing it is the way that you'll see most cooks doing it, because you've got a frying pan in one hand and the egg in the other, and that's the one-handed crack. If you know how to hold a fastball, you know how to hold an egg. 2 fingers on top, other 2 fingers across the bottom, thumb in the middle. Crack it like that, and then with your top 2 fingers and your bottom thumb and other 2 fingers, you pull in opposite directions like that, and out falls the yolk. And by the way, should you ever need to make something like a hollandaise sauce, an eggs benedict, something like that for a really fancy breakfast, the quickest way to separate an egg is like this. Crack, one-handed crack, and the yolk goes into your fingers, and the white slips down through. And here, we're just making scrambled eggs, so it goes back with its white. Next, we beat them together, and then you can either add a little bit of water to smooth it out, or a little bit of milk to smooth it and to enrich it just a little bit. And at this point, you can season your scrambled eggs. So I'm going to put in a little bit of salt, and you can add a little bit of pepper and a little bit of cayenne pepper as well, if you like. So for 4 eggs, about 1.5 tablespoons of milk. And you want to beat your eggs so that you can kind of see that there are little windows floating around on the top. Those are the egg whites, and they're unincorporated right now. You want to beat it so that those are gone. And while you're doing that, you're also incorporating air, which is going to make your scrambled eggs or your omelet, you can use this exact same formula for either one, a little bit fluffier. All right, now the important thing to remember about scrambled eggs is that you don't want to cook them too terribly fast. And the reason is that they taste best when they have been cut into really tiny, tiny little fluffy pieces. And so I have a little bit of oil, a little bit of olive oil, because that's my preference, in a pan. I'm using about, probably just a teaspoon or so. And then in go the eggs. Now, when you hear that sizzle, that means that they're starting to cook on the bottom, and you need to get right on it. So we start moving it in like this because we don't want a whole big lump like that to form. So just keep at it and then chop. Scrape it away from the sides because they will sort of get kind of leathery if you just let them sit there and cook. And you want it to be consistent. And I'm moving the spatula around. I'm also moving the pan around. So at this point, I'm going to add a little bit of cheese. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of grated cheddar cheese. And I'm going to add, for color and for flavor, about a tablespoon of chopped green onion. And now, as you can see, it's beginning to set. Right now, this is done. This is what's called a light scramble. If I keep cooking it, it'll become a medium scramble or dry. And this is just the way that they should look. We'll put them out right here. Now that's 4 scrambled eggs, easily enough for 2 people. One of the easiest and tastiest breakfasts you can make is French toast. You start out with 4 eggs beaten. 4 eggs will give you about 8 slices of French toast. It'll feed a couple of hungry people or a family of 4 not so hungry people. For that, after they're well beaten, so there are no little windows in it that indicate that there are still egg whites, you want to have a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And then, in addition to that, we're going to put in just a sprinkling of nutmeg and also about a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. And we'll beat that all up together, and then we'll soak the toast in it. Now, how long you soak the toast is dependent on how thick the bread is. This is quite thin, so it can stay in there for 3 or 4 minutes, and it will be just fine. But you do want to make sure that you get all your spices beaten well together, because cinnamon in particular likes to lump up. And make sure you lift the bread so that the batter goes underneath it. And then just leave it for a couple of minutes. If you have really thick bread and it needs to stay for longer, like if, say, it was an inch or more thick, you would want it in there for probably 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And I would suggest that you put it in a covered container in the refrigerator, not just leave it out at room temperature. Right next to you, you get your pan heating over a medium flame. You don't want it to be too hot because it's got to cook all the way through. The bread absorbs the egg, and there's egg all the way through, and you want that to be completely cooked. And I'm using a neutral flavored oil, in this case a canola oil, and getting it all over the bottom of the pan. I don't know if you can see the little swirls in the pan that indicate that it is hot enough to put something in. And then lift it out very carefully and lift it out with a spatula. If you lift it out with your fingers, in all likelihood, the bread will be heavy enough because it's absorbed the egg to break and fall down, and you'll have a little wet crumb in your hand and a big gaping hole in the side of your French toast. Let it drain off so you don't have little extra bits of batter that are cooking on the side, and just put it in the pan. At this thickness, it will take 2 to 3 minutes on either side over a medium flame. You want it to be lightly browned. And at this point, in a small pan like this, if you're cooking 2 at a time, you'd put the next 2 in to soak. By the time these got done, those would be ready. And a little bit of powdered sugar to finish it up, and syrup on the side. We're going to make two simultaneous omelets in completely different styles. One on a cool burner in a large pan, one on a very hot burner in a small pan. So I'm going to start both of them the same way with a little bit, look at this, it's smoking already. A little bit of olive oil, and this one with a little bit of olive oil. And I've got 4 beaten eggs in here mixed with 1.5 tablespoons of milk and a little bit of salt. So it goes into the big pan, half of it, and gets spread around, and then it's just going to cook, just like that. It's just going to sit there and very slowly cook all the way through. Whereas this one is much more frisky. In it goes around and 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 around. You see it's almost done? Nothing's moving there. And off. And I put on my fillings. I'm putting on a little bit over a tablespoon, like a heaping tablespoon of cheddar cheese, about the same amount of cooked mushroom and scallion, and a small amount of diced tomato. And then from here, it goes up underneath a broiler and sits right there for about 60 seconds, and that's going to make it rise a little. While I'm doing that, I take those same fillings and I put it onto the calm, serene omelet, which is slowly, slowly bubbling away over here. And once again, the same amounts, but spread a little more because the diameters are a little bit different here. And lastly, some green onions. One of the things that I really like about omelets are that they can be filled with almost anything. Any kind of cheese, from cheddar cheese to brie, any kind of meat, from ham to chicken to turkey. It's a great way to use leftovers, and a lot of restaurants typically do that. Okay, now you can see that it's all shaking as one thing and it's almost done. And by now, this should be just about ready to come out of the pan, and it is. So side by side, 2 different versions of the same thing. And I will admit, I did put a little bit more of the batter in this one. This will probably be enough to feed 1 very hungry person or 2 moderately hungry people. And this is a onesie. So this one will come out, and as it comes out, you tilt the pan a little bit like this and start from the top. So it kind of rolls out. Now the French will tell you there are 2 basic omelette styles. There is the rustique, in which you are allowed to have a little bit of brown, the country omelet, like this. And then there is the citified omelet, or the classical omelet, where you cannot have any cracks in the top, where everything has to be a nice, even, beautiful yellow. I prefer it to look a little bit like that because it looks like somebody actually spent some time with it, and I like the flavor a little bit better. And this, you can see it's pretty much solidified on the top, and what I'm going to do, because it's a little wet on the corner here, is lift the edge so that that wet part can run down. You see how it's running down the side? And then it's going to hit the hot frying pan and cook solid. So this can just slowly continue all the way through and just cook there, and then we would put it out on the plate the same way, except we'd fold it directly in half. Or if you're feeling very frisky and you really want it to hurry up and finish, you can simply do that. And then, because this is the part that you want on the outside, once you've made your commitment and you flipped it over, you have to do it again. And then out it comes, and fold it over. And then add a little bit of garnish to the top. And there are a couple basic omelet styles. Another kind, which is very, very easy, is the frittata style omelet. And in this one, we start exactly the same way. And I'm using liquid eggs here. These are pasteurized and completely homogenized together, so I don't have to worry that there are going to be little bits of egg white floating around in there. And this is 2 eggs, so I'm putting, about 2 teaspoons of milk in there with them. And then I'm going to add a pinch of salt. And we'll put this into here. Now, a frittata-style omelet is very interesting because you can start out with your ingredients in the pan, and rather than adding them to the egg when the egg is cooking, you start by cooking your ingredients. We'll start with these peppers and the remainder of the mushrooms and the remainder of the green. What you'll do is once those are cooking brightly, you pour the eggs right on top of them and stir them around and cook it completely. A frittata is a completely cooked omelet without any wet in the center. And so while you're over here, you can work with your batter. And you can add the other stuff that you want right now. So if you want cheese in your frittata batter, you add it now. And I'm going to put a little Parmesan in there so that we understand the accent. So here we go. We've got 2 kinds of cheese. We're going to stir it the same way that we did, shaking it and stirring it around, more or less like we did with the French omelet. And as it cooks on one side, keep pushing it in and letting the uncooked part slide underneath. For this, you won't need the broiler. It'll cook all the way through just right here. It also doesn't rise the way that the French omelet does. When it's completely set and cooked most of the way through, it needs to go over. In a small pan, you can do it like this. If you had a larger pan, or you wanted to be more careful about it, the traditional flipping method involves taking a plate like this, putting it on top of the pan, and very quickly, but very carefully, doing that. And then you simply slide it off the plate and back into the pan. And here we're done. A typical presentation would be to simply have it spread out like that, or to have it folded and garnished like a more conventional omelet. All right, I confess, I'm using a pancake mix, but they're going to taste good anyway. And I'll give you a recipe if you want to do it on your own. It's very easy. But you can make a really decent pancake with a pancake mix if you choose your mix carefully and you think about what you want to add to it. So here, I've got it made according to the package directions, which involves a choice of milk or water to thin out the mix, and a little bit of oil. And I'm also going to add some chopped walnuts to it. And I'm adding these chopped walnuts because my granddaddy always put walnuts in his pancake batter, and they were always really good. And then I'm also going to add a small handful of blueberries. So I've made a pancake mix amount that is probably about 1.5 cups of total batter, and I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of chopped walnuts and about 1/4 cup of blueberries. And we're going to use the same batter in a couple different places. We're going to use them in a sauté pan, and you could use it, of course, on a griddle, and a flat iron skillet if you wanted to. And that's going to be the pancake. And then right next to that, we have this amazing contraption called a waffle iron, and we're going to use the same batter in both. So this has a self-regulating temperature. You don't tell it cold or hot. A waffle iron is trained. It knows what to do. A stove, of course, is not trained. You have to tell it what to do. And what you want to tell it to do when you're making pancakes is not to cook things too quickly. You don't want it brown on both sides and raw and gooey in the middle. So we've got a little bit in here, and I'm going to take a cup, and I am going to put about 1/2 cup of batter in each of these, and it should spread nicely to make an average size pancake for an average size guy. And now we do the same thing in a waffle iron. Waffle irons, new waffle irons, and this is brand new, do need to be seasoned a little bit. So what we did is we took a little bit of canola oil and a paper towel and we rubbed it down. And so we shouldn't have any problems with this sticking. Now I'm going to put in a little bit more in the waffle iron and let it spread. What you normally do in a waffle iron is you put it in the middle and let it spread to the edges. If I wanted them all to be perfectly square, I could put them in one corner or another. All right, this goes down. Many waffle irons will tell you when it's done because a little light will come on, and that's what I'm going to be looking for. Now, when you look at our pancake, you'll notice that the holes are opening up in the side. That is something to look for. That indicates that it is time to flip the pancake. And so we go gently underneath and gently over. So over she goes, and the blueberries are looking just lovely. Now, once again, you can buy these things. You can buy pancakes now. You can actually buy frozen cooked pancakes. And of course, you can buy frozen cooked waffles. But it's worth the time to learn how to make them and cook them yourself because you can vary them. If you want them lighter and fluffier, you can beat egg whites. And this is very common for waffles, by the way. To make a light, fluffy Belgian waffle batter, you would take a mix like this, and then you take beaten egg whites when they're big and stiff and white peaks, and you very gently fold them into the batter so that you don't crush them too much, and there's still little lumps of white sticking out. And then you pour it in there, and it makes it raise up, and it's very light and not heavy at all. You can do the same thing with a pancake batter. And this guy looks like it's almost done. See how it's rising up in the middle? Isn't that pretty? So I'm going to pull them off the heat, and it's looking done. And so now I'm going to take it out of the pan, and this time I am going to use a nylon spatula so that I don't scratch the Teflon here because I know my pancake's not drooling over the sides anymore. There we go. And with it, we can serve a little bit of syrup and a little bit of extra cinnamon if we wish. And you can, of course, put powdered sugar on it. You can serve a fruit garnish on the side. And I would like to check now and see how close our waffle is to being done. Ooh, it's coming down. Looking pretty good. Lovely. Notice that highly irregular shape that says, I am handmade. Fried eggs may seem like the easiest thing in the world to make, but there are a number of things that can go wrong. Foremost among them being shell in your frying pan. So rather than simply cracking your egg directly into the frying pan and risking A, breaking the yolk, and B, getting shell in it, the way to avoid both of those problems is to crack them first into a bowl. If the yolks break, mix them up, use it for omelets or for French toast batter. If the yolks are fine, then we'll go on and we'll make our fried eggs. Once again, the two methods of cracking the egg, one with two hands, one with one hand. So we're going to do two at a time, and we'll start out over a low to medium flame. Got about a teaspoon of canola oil in that pan. You can also use olive oil, depending on how you like your eggs flavored. And we very gently put the eggs directly into the pan. Now, if you're going to cook them sunny side up, you use a lower flame than you would for eggs that you flip. So if we were going to cook them sunny side up, which means cooked all the way, the white at least cooked all the way, and the top left pretty runny, you do it over a low flame because otherwise you'll get what's called in the trade brown skirts on the bottom. If it's cooking too fast, it'll brown on the bottom before it cooks completely on the top. When you notice that the outside is no longer transparent, you can see through it here in the corner, and out here it's not transparent anymore, then the whole thing holds together enough that you can safely flip it. Not until. If I try picking it up right now, things are going to run down the side and they're going to go all over the place, and the yolk will probably follow after the white as it cascades down the side of the pan, and it will be a glorious mess, but I will have to clean it up as well. What we're going to do, now that we've shown how you get from here to sunny side up is we're going to wait until these are a little bit firmer and show you how we get from the same place to an over easy egg. And then from there to an over hard egg, all with the same set of eggs. And now, as you can see, it's white on the bottom, clear on the top, and it's ready to go over. There is your over easy egg. And now if we want to continue this process and turn these over easy eggs into over hard eggs, there's a very simple way to do it. Or you can be a little more formal and do it with a spatula. If you want over hard, it's much, much easier just to break the yolk, boink, boink, and let it cook that way. Try not to get brown skirts on the bottom. You can see there's a little bit of browning right there, so I'm going to flip it back over again so I don't get it cooked too much on one side. And in between, which is the stage that we're at right now, is over medium. That would be with an unbroken yolk. So the stages are, once again, with the eyes open and looking at you, sunny side up. Has to be cooked pretty slowly so that the bottom sets while the top is pretty much not cooked. Warm, but not very cooked. Over easy, one flip. Over medium, one flip, and then a flip back. Do it with a spatula until you've done it with toast enough times in a pan, rather than eggs, that you can be relatively certain that you're not going to pick your eggs up off the floor. And then over hard, broken yolks, cooked until it's cooked all the way through, both the yolk and the white set. And then this is what your over hard eggs are going to look like. Even scrambled eggs don't have to be served in a traditional way. For instance, you can put them into a breakfast burrito. You could equally well serve them on a bagel or in a piece of pocket pita or make a sandwich out of them. I'm feeling kind of burrito-ish today though, so I'm putting my eggs here and I'm putting my bacon with it. And then because I know my mom is going to be calling me on the phone asking me if I've eaten my cruciferous vegetables today, I'll stick just enough broccoli in there that I can say honestly that I have. And then I'm going to finish it off with a little bit of fresh salsa. And remember, as fancy as that looks, it's basically scrambled eggs. So over it goes, and over the top, and rolled up. And not only is it scrambled eggs, it's portable scrambled eggs. Excuse me. Not bad. One of the quickest ways to get a good nutritious breakfast is to make a smoothie. And smoothies can be just about anything. Helps to have a blender. And what I'm putting in here right now is banana, obviously. And then I'm going to follow it up with a little bit of apricot mango yogurt. Give it that nice orange cast. And then a little bit of orange juice. Your entire nutrient profile in one liquefied presentation. And are we ready? A perfect breakfast for one. So I had about half a cup of the orange juice. I had one little apricot mango, and that's a 6-ounce container, so 3/4 of a cup, and one banana. And it fits in here perfectly. Yum. Cheers.